Right. Hello, everyone. My name is Kayla Engelhardt, and I'm super excited to share a little bit about my research project on thermal thresholds and habitat resilience for bull kelp in the Salish Sea. Bull kelp are a foundational species in coastal ecosystems, providing essential habitat and food for many marine species that the Pacific Northwest values, including salmon. Due to bull kelp's narrow tolerance for heat, they are especially vulnerable to climate change. This not only threatens kelp forests, but also has ecological implications for various marine species that depend on its habitat qualities. Bull kelp's vulnerability make them a key species to study as temperatures start to increase more and more. The research question I'm going to be answering today is how has climate change impacted the thermal window of opportunity for bull kelp in the Salish Sea over the last 2 decades? I'm sure some of you are wondering what a thermal window of opportunity is. I definitely had no idea before I started this research project, but a thermal window of opportunity refers to the range of temperatures within which an organism can effectively carry out essential physiological and ecological functions. This concept is particularly relevant in the concept of climate change, in the context of climate change, as shifts in marine temperatures outside of this optimal range can lead to population decline. For species like bull kelp, the thermal window of opportunity defines the temperature thresholds that allow for processes like photosynthesis and blade elongation, which are all critical for maintaining a healthy kelp forest. This research project was part of my internship with the Washington State Department of Ecology and the Puget Sound Institute, where I focused on analyzing physiological relevant temperature thresholds for 6 key cold water species. I was tasked with identifying each species' thermal range and their economic, ecologic, and cultural significance to the Pacific Northwest to help communicate scientific understandings to a wider audience. Ultimately, I decided to really hone in on bull kelp for this capstone due to their active declines in the Salish Sea. For this research, I selected 6 monitoring stations in the Salish Sea that support floating kelp forests. To do this, I overlaid Department of Natural Resources floating kelp indicators with Department of Ecology's long-term temperature monitoring data and GIS. I analyzed mean temperatures, months exceeding 15 degrees Celsius, and months exceeding 17 degrees Celsius for 2 periods, 1999 through 2011 and 2012 through 2024. Through extensive literature reviews during my internship, I found that bull kelp's blades elongate optimally at around 15 degrees Celsius, beyond which they start to experience stress and reduce growth. Blade growth is a key indicator of environmental change as they are the most susceptible to the increased heat on the surface layers, so that's why I'm focusing on bull kelp blades today. So when looking at my results and analyzing these 6 sites across the Salish Sea, a lot of my results are pretty variable, but they all have an underlying trend of seeing an increased warming across decades, which would shift and narrow bull kelp's thermal window of opportunity. While I cannot conclusively say that bull kelp's thermal window of opportunity is contracting in all sites, all the sites that I studied did experience some type of warming. Highlighted here, I have 2 stations, Possession Sound and Gordon Point. These graphs are displaying bull kelp's window for blade growth from 1999 to 2023 during the summer months and in the upper 3 meters of the water column. Warmer colors of orange and red indicate temperatures above the thermal maximum, while green colors indicate temperatures within the range, and gray indicates data gaps. I chose these 2 stations because they highlight the spatial variability of the Salish Sea, Possession Sound being a relatively warmer site, and Gordon Point being a cooler site. For Possession Sound, there is a 0.17 degrees Celsius rise in mean temperatures between decades, with the most recent decade's mean temperature being 14.63 degrees Celsius, which is a little concerning because it's only 0.37 degrees Celsius away from exceeding the thermal range. Additionally, the frequency of months exceeding 15 degrees Celsius increased dramatically. From 1999 through 2011, there was 17 months. This then rose to 21 months in 2012 through 2024. Months where temperatures exceeded 17 degrees Celsius remained at 4 months between both decades. All of this indicates that bull kelp's thermal window of opportunity is shortening in possession sound, which has cascading implications for those marine ecosystems. In Gordon Point, the mean temperature rise was slightly higher at zero point 0.4 degrees Celsius between decades, with the most recent decade's mean temperature being 13.4 degrees Celsius. 13 degrees Celsius is well within bull kelp's thermal range, but it is still getting slightly on the warmer side. Additionally, only 2 months in each decade exceeded 15 degrees Celsius threshold, but no month's mean temperatures exceeded the 17 degrees Celsius threshold. This indicates that Gordon Point is serving as a thermal refuge for bull kelp because temperatures are remaining within the optimal range, allowing for kelp forests to sustain their populations. So from my results, I had three key factors that are influencing bull kelp's window of opportunity. One being increased mean temperatures, two being variable frequency of temperature threshold exceedance, and the last being spatial variability in warming. All sites that I had studied had an increase in mean temperatures between decades, but variable temperature threshold exceedance. Ultimately, what my results show is spatial variability in warming. The Salish Sea is a really unique ecosystem to study because it is so dynamic and can't really be placed into one box. This means that the thermal window for bull kelp is narrowing in some areas, while others it may remain more resilient. This research holds significance in many different areas. Bull kelp decline has cascading ecological impacts. Kelp forests affect biodiversity, food webs, and the socioeconomic systems that depend on healthy kelp forests. Bull kelp are culturally and economically important as they act as nurseries for other key cold water species, including salmon. For conservation strategies, by identifying spatial variability in warming conditions, we can take a targeted approach to conservation. For instance, higher risk sites like Possession Sound, where rising temperatures have already exceeded the critical threshold, can be prioritized for interventions such as restoration. Meanwhile, more resilient sites like Gordon Point can be leveraged as a refuge and be a source for recolonization. Temperature thresholds also play a critical role in guiding future monitoring and modeling efforts. My research highlights the need for continued monitoring of temperature trends and modeling future scenarios to pinpoint high-risk areas. This data enables adaptive management strategies, ensuring that resources are directed where they're needed most. Ultimately, the significance of this research highlights the vulnerability of bulk health of climate change and emphasizes the importance of new science and monitoring to safeguard the future of this valuable species. But lastly, I would just like to take some time to acknowledge my mentors, Christopher Krems, Marielle Canoja, Stefano Mazzilli, and Pichon for encouraging me and helping me make this research possible, as well as my family, my friends, and my environmental studies cohort for their continued support during this research project.